Okay, in this video we are going to be talking about setting up a drip system. So here we are in this native grass garden, native plant garden that we installed. All of these plants are really drought tolerant and don't actually need supplemental water, but it's good to set up a drip because if it doesn't rain for about a month, you'll want to water even native plants just to keep them healthy and out of dormancy. So I'm going to walk you through the different parts of it. The macro lines are already in. So this is the macro tubing, and this is set up to a sprinkler system, or you can run it from a rain barrel, or you can run it from a hose. And then you can put a timer on that so it waters automatically, or you can just water it yourself. And then this right here is the micro tubing. So this is 1/4 inch tubing, and it has two parts on it. It has an end that releases water, and it has this connector. Okay, so there are a couple kinds of connectors. I'll talk about that in a second, and there are a couple kinds of tops. We'll go over to the box and talk about that. But essentially what we're doing is we're running off the macro line, and we're bringing the water right to the plant that we hope to water. This will avoid a lot of weeding in the inner spaces because we won't have watered under here. And you can see a little grass popping up, but basically this was a grass lawn. We're trying to get it to a more xeric landscape. We covered it in newspaper, and we don't want to water the newspaper too much because the paper will degrade and the grass will come through before it dies. So let's go over to our box of supplies. So you need a couple of things to set up a drip system. You need a roll of the macro tubing, and you need a roll of the micro tubing, and then you need a collection of parts. So these are the connectors. They have T connectors. These are helpful if you are using soaker hose. This is just a hose that the water just beads out of it. It's porous. But when you set up a soaker hose, you want to set it up in loops so that you have equal pressure running throughout the loop. And in that case, you would use this T, and you would run the soaker hose from either end of it, and then this end, the perpendicular end, would go into the macro tubing. Now, if you're just running a drip to a grass or a perennial, I like to use these bent connectors because then the lines lay flat. And then over here we have an assortment of tops. So they're usually color coded. These ones, the red release 1/2 gallon per hour, the green 1 gallon per hour, and the blacks release 2 gallons per hour. And we're going to choose which heads we use based on the size of the plants. We will use the larger ones on grasses because we want them to establish quickly and grow vigorously to create a privacy break. Now, the only real essential piece of equipment you need is this awl here. This is how you puncture the macro tubing before you install the connector and the drip to the plant. It is also helpful to have some really strong scissors, so if you make a mistake, you can cut through the micro tubing or cut through the macro tubing and release your heads, because all these findings here, they cost a lot of money even though they're very small. So you don't want to lose them, and you don't want to waste them if you redesign a system. There are also tops like this, which is a bubbler. So you put this stake in the ground and it bubbles. And this is helpful if you're like doing ground covers or something. So you want not just a point source of water, but maybe a slightly larger area. And then over here on the top of our rock garden, we're going to use a rotary sprinkler. So it waters the whole thing at once. Now, this kind of defies all of my lecturing about planting in concave spaces so it pools the water. However, this client really wanted a rock garden, so we built this rock garden, and it is convex. It does erode. It's hard to water. We've used really drought tolerant succulent species for the most part, but by using that sprinkler the rotary sprinkler, like we won't be putting a lot of water on there at the same time, so hopefully it won't erode as much as if we just used a sprinkler head from the hose. And the drip system, the little drip heads wouldn't necessarily be appropriate here because there's lots of plants that need to be watered, and it would be really a mess of microtubing if we ran microtubing to every single little plant. So that's what we're doing today. Please leave a comment if you have any questions. Thank you.